Alright, hello everyone, and welcome on the first episode of Mikael Koski Show. Alright, so how did everything start? Some of you have been noticing that I've been traveling quite a bit in the past few years. For you new guys who doesn't know me, I can tell you about myself to begin with. So my name is Mikael Koski, and this is my show. And I decided to start traveling with my partner in 2014. And it was one of those moments where you realize that you want to do a change, and there is something greater that is awaiting. But how would you know something like that before you know what waits on the other side? And so just a long story short, in 2014 we were based in the cold northern country, about 64 degrees up from the equator, called Finland, and a little town called Vasa. And me and my partner Camilla had been together already for a few years, and we were very comfortable. We were comfortable with the surroundings, we were comfortable with the work relations we had, we were comfortable with our families, with our friends, everything around us except the fact that we live only once and there might be something great awaiting. Also, the winter was pretty hard, only because it was so long and dark. But that's another story. It's part of this story, but a different story. So after realizing that there might be opportunities out there while traveling, being a tourist, trying to get away, every holiday to somewhere warm and enjoy the sunshine a little bit more, we started to feel comfortable with traveling. Of course, you have to first get yourself involved into something where before you can really invest everything in and live for good. So we had a lot of connections, friends everywhere around the world, and we realized that it doesn't matter where you are, because you can always make new connections, new friends. You can, well, of course, keeping the old ones as well, but also to be able to create new chapters in your life. It's not an end of the old, it's kind of like end of an old chapter, but it doesn't mean the end of an old life. Because wherever you go, you involve yourself in a different game, in a different energy, and that's where things are starting to shape up. Alright, so back to the moment of the realization. So I was sitting in a sauna once with my mates, and one of the guys said to me, "Mikael, do you have a problem?" And I said, "What?" "Do you have a void in your soul because you need to, get all these nonsense materialistic things and it doesn't make you happy?" And I said to him, "Well, now, what are you talking about?" But after a moment or two, probably in the same day, same night, I just realized that, yeah, he's right. There is a problem, and the problem is that I was supposed to get going already, and to get out there and to travel and experience the world in a way that I was only able to dream about. I had big dreams about getting into the movies, and I had, big dreams of starting my own production company one day, and also to help people. And but it wasn't possible where we were. So after that moment, we had a profound realization. I had a profound realization about that. Yes, the reason for the void is because I need to get going. I need to get on adventuring. I need to get out the door and jump on a plane and get somewhere where I can, experience everything brand new. So when that one moment of realization had happened, it was so much easier to, it was basically leading into the decision, and decision led us into the reality of, okay, let's make this happen. Let's just sell everything what we have. How much runway can we get? We don't need this junk anymore. We sold our house, we sold our car, we sold basically everything what we had. And that gave us freedom. And you know what? It's actually quite amazing to feel how that feels when you don't have debts anymore, you don't have a mortgage anymore, you don't have this and that, and you can basically do what you want. So we were lucky enough to collect a little bit of runway with selling all that stuff, not too much, but so that we could get moving. And another thing was that I saw a pattern because I was dealing cars. I was dealing cars in a nice prestige car dealership, but I saw one pattern that, many people who wanted to, people wanted to portray themselves in a good light. People bought expensive cars which they couldn't afford. And that was a normal thing that I saw. I was witnessing this all the time. And that made me think that this is a trap. You never can satisfy everyone at once. And you shouldn't. And that's the point of this podcast, by the way. It's owning who you are. Because life is short. It's not a rehearsal. One day we are old. And then it's too late. And then what are you going to say to yourself when you watch yourself in the mirror? And this is the conversation that I had with the guy in the mirror. I said to him, I was asking him, would you be happy to wake up one day being 80 years old and realizing that you were in this moment of time once when you were young, you were thinking about the opportunity to leave, but you didn't? And could you deal with that? Because as I mentioned before, I was super comfortable with everything. It wasn't about that there was anything wrong with the place, but the problem was that I was too comfortable. I was way too comfortable, and I realized that I didn't grow, and I was just wasting my time. I was spending time, I was getting older, and it didn't mean anything to me anymore. So therefore, that moment when I had my conversation with the mirror made me realize that life is too short. You need to do something about it. Stop complaining and stop talking about doing. You just have to go and do it. So therefore, we decided to sell everything, as I mentioned before. And you know what? The funny thing is that there is a resistance for everything. There was a major resistance for us to be able to leave, to go and basically change our lifestyle. People around us were asking questions like, what are you guys doing? What are you, like, first of all, telling people that we wanted to go, but then secondly, to be explaining why we want to go and when are we coming back, and all those hundreds of questions that people had. And then when people started to realize that we were serious about it, some were very encouraging and wanting us to succeed, but some were saying like, well, we don't want you to leave, what are we going to do? And I understand that completely. And the funny thing as well was that when you have clarity, as when we had that clarity. And by the way, fair to mention that my partner Camilla, who I had been together with for 4 or 5 years, I think at that time, was fully ready to go as well. So I'm very lucky we are soulmates. We understand each other very well, and we have similar kind of values, so that made this process much easier. So yeah, we were on the same page. We wanted to go, and that's where we just jumped on the plane. Oh, sorry, now I'm rushing ahead. So we were ready to go, and that's when we just overcame a certain level, a threshold of resistance. It's almost like, you know, the universe is testing how serious you are with this whole thing. Because if you're not serious, you will kind of bounce back to the same place where you were before. I'm often thinking about a pendulum going up and down or swinging from side to side, and that's exactly how I felt with this chapter of preparing ourselves to leave. All right, moving forward. So when we had that decision being made, the clarity was there, and that gave us all the tools we needed to move across our plans. Actually, there was a pretty good website, I think it was called Boots and All, that sent us an email every single day to remind you of, okay, today just focus on this thing, pack your stuff. Okay, next day throw the things that you don't need away, and then the third day would probably be like, fix your banking things and passports and all that stuff. So it gave us also a little bit of coordinations where to go and in which order to go, so that we wouldn't forget anything. Because as said, we had only purchased one-way tickets, and we didn't know when to come back. So yeah, but with that clarity came the energy, and with that energy we were able to push our way all the way through. Like incredible. It was 2014, right? And Europe was just about to, kind of recover from the 2008 housing crisis. But it was a slow effect. It started from the States, it came to Europe. It hit very badly in southern Europe, and it slowly found its way to Finland as well. So during that time, people told me that just a complete idiot would do this. A complete idiot would leave a solid job. By the way, I've been in this company for 11 years at that time, and I really liked it. Like there was a very good company, great team. There was nothing wrong with that. But to say thank you and goodbye was something very, very daunting in that sense, until it felt just right. So when that momentum and that energy started to force us, and it wasn't forcing us, we were on the top of that wave of energy. And as I said, the universe pushed us a little bit, helped us a little bit. So on the 14th of December 19th December 2014, we had sold our apartments, we had sold our cars, everything went. One day, we were mortgage free, sorry. I didn't have the commitments anymore, and also we had been, we were traveling light because the stuff was sold. Just one day. And I took this as a confirmation of the things what are supposed to happen will happen for the right reasons. Yes, 100%. All right, moving forward. So after this, we had only two or 3 weeks to pack our stuff and leave for good. And when we left that one day, we were free like birds, and we didn't even know where we were, what we were involving ourselves into. Because the thing is that when you grow up in a certain place, you know everything. You know how the culture works. Well, not everything, of course, but you know how the system works. You know how this works. You know how that works. You're thinking in your own language, and everything is just very simple. You are on autopilot, and everything is familiar and safe until it's not. Until you are in a country where you can't speak your language anymore. Until you're in a country where you don't have any safety nets. Until, you have to find a job. You don't know how the system works, how the taxation works. You don't know this or you don't know that. But the interesting thing, once again, was that when you just jump, take the leap of faith, you will find people, the right people on your path, who will then help you forward. So in our case, we found people who were helping, people who, and you know what? It's all about the energy. So when people see that you're authentic, once again, keyword, authenticity. When people see that you're authentic, genuine, and you are ready to, walk your talk and make things happen, and you are in a different country, but you are full with excitement, that's when things are, when people are starting to support you. People are saying, hey, why don't we do this and that? And now, as we speak, 7 years later, some of the people who I first met on the first days here in Sydney, for instance, are the same people that I work with different projects. We are doing, for instance, a film production now about NFT art with one of the first people who we met here in Sydney. And that's pretty amazing in my opinion. So by saying this, I want to give you a word of encouragement that there is nothing to be afraid of. The thing is that our mind creates these inner conversations and dialogues, and it tells you how life will play out and how things are. But when you realize that chatter in your mind is not you, it's not you, it's just a construction of your previous experiences, for instance, which still carries that voice into your present day. And that's where reinvention comes into play and plays a very, very, very important part. But in order to be able to reinvent yourself, you have to be able to discover yourself, or you have to be aware to listen to your guts or your heart. You have to be able to give yourself value if you feel like you want to do a change in your life. I think change is necessary. We need to do the change. My story is just my story, by the way, so if you're getting bored, that's fine. I'm happy to explain more and talk more, because this story is so vivid in my life, and it's been defining the person who I am right now forward. So when you rediscover yourself, then you can relocate yourself into, let's say relocation is very important, because when you are in one certain area of your life, let's say it could be your neighborhood where you grew up, you will be more or less the average of the people who you have around you, there's nothing wrong with that either. But since growth is very important and change is inevitable, you better throw yourself into different places where that growth will happen. And therefore, what would be better than just leave your country and go into a completely new country? And you know what? This is a very important thing to say. We discovered ourselves in a whole new way because we didn't have any safety net. We had friends, yeah, but we didn't ask anyone for any financial support. We knew how much we could travel in a time frame and what we could do and what kind of daily budget we would have, but we were never asking any money from anyone. And that's another important thing, because when you take ownership and you just follow your own rules in that way, I suppose, principles, that helps you to stay truthful to yourself in a way that you don't get involved with everything or everyone, because there's a lot of influences out there which are not necessarily good, as we all know. That's fine. It's just the battle of good and evil, I suppose. But the thing is, back to the reinvention. So when you relocate yourself into a new place, you're able to relocate your thoughts, and you're in a fresh environment, and you can start studying your thoughts. You can start to inspect your programmings, because we all carry those programmings. And by the way, I'm not going to talk too much about the modern day problems, because we all know that there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of uncertainty around this whole virus thing and whatever is involved with that. But what I learned is that there is storytellers everywhere. Everyone wants to tell their story, as I want to tell my story right now. It's your choice if you listen to me or not, and it's fine if you don't. If it doesn't resonate, please switch off the podcast immediately, because you're wasting your time. So therefore, you have to recognize that you got these kind of fake prophets everywhere. You have fake gold everywhere. People are trying to create value out of nothing, and they want to have you on board to invest on it. Sometimes, this is just an example. But yes, investing your time, for instance. Therefore, for us being able to be relocating ourselves in a different environment, we were able to inspect all these stories that we carried in our minds. Stories from the past, belief systems, all that stuff. They're like encrypted codes in your brain, and they're keeping on giving signals. Or sometimes you might get distracted on something, and then you get triggered by some blinking lights, and everyone's fighting for your attention nowadays, especially in a major city, like big city. I'm just located in Sydney, by the way, and there's about, I think, 5 million people living here. So people really wants your attention. Gives opportunities, but also you have to once again own who you are and stay grounded. With grounded, I mean that you have your feet steadily on the ground, and you don't let the winds blow you from side to side or off your track. So yeah, wow, by the way, I didn't realize that I had so much to say. I thought that this was going to be a 10-minute thing, but here we are talking. Well, since the momentum is going, let's keep on talking. Yeah, so that was the momentum to begin with. How the opportunity got into the play, and which opportunity, or how we grabbed it in a lack of a better wording. And then good things started to happen to us. And by the way, next chapter, I have a very special guest. She's my life partner, my soulmate, and my wife, Mikael Koski. So she will be talking next. So that's why I'm talking mostly from my aspect now, from my point of view. But just to remind you guys, we have been together for 14 years now. And the whole journey wouldn't be possible if we weren't together. So therefore, it's very important to acknowledge her as well. But as said, she will be talking more later on herself, in her own words. Yeah, so when we were overseas, we got these immense opportunities to work in the dream sector things. Like for me, I told you before, the film industry was calling me. I got into the pictures, I got into acting, I got into acting training. I learned to trust myself in a different way, to unleash my inner child, which is completely fine, by the way. And once again, I'm talking about these programmings. So it's been like unlocking. For me, since I chose the film industry and storytelling in that sense, it was very important that I was able to channel my emotions clearly and freely, first of all. I remember this one guy. Some of you might know this person. His name is Larry Moss. He's one of the very famous, very world-renowned acting coaches. He's from America, I think. But he's been coming to Sydney, Australia to teach people and doing some theater directing live, which is super interesting. And he's a guy who's twisting and shaping you and shaking you and doing all the most uncomfortable things in order to shake your ego off and shake those old thought patterns which are not serving the story, because we all are blocked in a way. So okay, what he said was very, very poetic and beautiful and awesome. He said that sometimes we need to picture this, okay? We need to drill in to our deepest self, into the core of the volcano, where you have to deal with the most uncomfortable things in your life, but you just have to deal with it. And you have heat, and you have distraction, and you have all that toxic, feeling. But as a person, you just have to get into the heat and tweak every single little instrument in your system, so that when you have been staying in that hot hell, you are able to find the tunes in yourself to play the perfect symphony of your life. Think about it. It's pretty cool. And sorry, Larry, if you're listening. I'm not sure if I phrased this right, but the point is right there. So that's another thing. Like, for me, acting was so important that I needed to get myself involved. I needed to get myself in the training program and just get into the heat and finding the ways to tweak my own instruments. But that's it. I'm still working in different various projects. I'm producing a film by myself now with some really good folks who I met on my journey, and I feel that the momentum is growing more and more and more, and bigger opportunities will follow. I'm sure about it. And touching basis on one thing that I mentioned before, to help people. That's very, very important. So that you feel balanced with yourself. This is of course depending on your value system. But for me, I had to be able, I wanted to help people, right? And therefore, there's millions of ways how you do it, of course, but let's say commit to it, to help people who are in need, to be, helping homeless, for instance, or that's in my case what I've done. And then the documentary which we are producing now. Maybe I shouldn't tell too much, but you will see. And so giving and giving and giving, and then receiving the opportunity that will give you a good feeling, first of all, but also it gives you the new energy and the new waves which I'm thinking, to surf on in life. And by the way, as you can already probably tell right now, sometimes I'm a bit abstract with my wordings, but I feel that we are surfing on waves from a chapter to a chapter, and we just need to be able to learn how to surf. I use surfing as an example because there's a lot of surfers here, as you might know. Australia is the paradise for surfing. That's why there's a place called Surfers Paradise, I suppose. So you have to be able to paddle. You have to be able to build your core muscles. You have to be able to build your mental muscles. Everything what has to be, you have to master all that so that you can one day jump on the board and ride the wave into the next chapter of your life. And there's no wrong or the right, and that's the funny thing. And that's another mindset, a concept of mind. The mind wants to make shortcuts and saying, well, that was wrong, this is right, and you are wrong, and blah blah blah. There is only better and worse. Things that serves you, things that serves the surrounding of you, and things that harms you or harms the surrounding of you. But everything, without going too deep in this philosophy, but everything has a balance. There's a universal balance in everything. And you probably heard about karma. So if you're a bad person, you will most likely find bad events in your life. Someone could claim and say, what about someone really good who's always been helping and the best person in his or her life? What about when something terrible happened to them? And then again, I'm not the master who knows all the answers, but I know that there is a purpose for everything. And these 7 past years has been showing us that even the worst outcomes in one situation might bring their best results and outcomes in the next situation or chapter. Because after all, everything goes in spirals. Excuse me, once again, a bit of abstract concept here. But what I'm talking about spiral is that we are growing up. We are born first of all as very innocent beings, and then life, we go into a pipeline of life, all into those turbulent storms and whatever, and all those will impact us and leave a trace in us and a programming, for instance. And therefore we often tend to find when we grow up, we go in spirals, and we often will meet the points that we have been avoiding in our life. Let's say, or maybe finding bad relationships, or there's always a certain kind of similarity in these events, and therefore it's important to, when after your reinvention, you have to be able to give yourself the chance to grow freely. And while you grow and get older, you tend to go into these spirals, and once again you will hit a dead end. But it's not actually a dead end, it's a opportunity to another chapter, but you have to overcome it. And once again, this is to do with what I told you about before, the volcano thing. Just 1 second, I need to put the lights on. Alright, so you probably wonder, by the way, where I am at the moment. Put the lights on. I'm in my library. It's not my own library, but it's the library of the building. It's a private library, which is pretty cool. I like to come here to read books, write stuff, record stuff as well. So it's not my house. It's my house, but it's not my private library. House where I live. All right, moving on. Let's see. So to overcome those obstacles on the road, you need to just throw yourself in and be able to tune your instrument in your system to be able to play the symphony of your life in a free way. Like, if I may ask you, take a moment and think about a person who you can see to be extremely happy or very happy. A person who seems to be having everything, yet possibly nothing. And what makes that one person so interesting? You know, because we all have that kind of radiance or magnetism in our system, but we are not necessarily able to take it out. We are not able to play the symphony. And we might get angry sometimes, we may get frustrated sometimes. We just have to find a way. And okay, so after we've been away for nearly 7 years now, some friends and family members and random people has been coming to me and saying, we would like to know what's happening. We haven't heard anything from you in a long time. We don't know what you're doing. So that's part of the reason for this podcast as well, to explain a little bit about our journey and take you on board if you are a volunteer. And also give perhaps something to you. One of the major thing here when I will bring my guests in the upcoming episodes is to bring conversations in front of you where you can see and you can listen to people who come from all walks of life, who's been searching for something, who's been finding something, who's been cracking their codes, and who wants to share something with you. We'll be talking with very different, there will be film people, there will be sports people, there will be adventure travelers, there will be anything. And I'm looking forward to expand this experiment, Mikael Koski Show, to a completely new level where I might bring you on board on an adventure where we are road tripping somewhere, or maybe on a project what I'm working on, or maybe something else. Maybe you could send a message what you think and what you would like to hear more about. But it's about the empowerment, and it's about to create a little bit of a, first ignite your inspiration with these following guests, inspiration of what's possible and what could I do, and then create momentum to get you in speed, and then to elevate yourself into the next level where you can make anything happen in your life. And that's possible. That's such a cliche thing to say, but it's truly possible. If I, for instance, would go back 7 years in my life and I would tell myself that I would have been doing these things, I've been working with my big hero Mel Gibson on Hacksaw Ridge, I would say get out of town. I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe that I have a business in Australia. I wouldn't believe that we're permanent residents, soon citizens. I wouldn't believe that, these are just small things, of course, but in my world, these are some of the cornerstones in my life, building me to be a better person, better human. So yeah, that's what I want to do. So welcome on board this show. What I'm planning is to drop a new episode every single Friday. Many people the audience probably would be scattered all around the globe, so it's better that I don't give you a time frame. I just say Sydney, Australia time, or Australia afternoon. There will be a new episode dropping out every Friday. So feel free to connect and to share your thoughts, and to like, link, subscribe, whatever those words are. If you want to, the journey will be interesting. I can tell you that right away. So thank you for your time today, and let's make this chapter exciting. But remember one thing: own who you are. Authenticity is everything. Just a little bit about that. When I mentioned the noise everywhere around us, there's so much storytelling, there's so much blinking lights, there's so many notifications, there's so much this and that. Don't let that define you. It's just noise. It's just people wanting your attention. But you have to ask yourself, what are your values about? And then act accordingly to that. Stop yourself once in a while, every day, and think, am I in charge right now? Or is someone else in charge right now? That's all. So take ownership of who you are. Enjoy life. Love each other. Share the love. That's equally important. Because we are all here together. There's not he or she or they or we. We are all here together. We are all here a very short period of time. So let's make that count. And let's bring the positivity up and make good things happen. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you very much. See you next week. Adios.